So I just wanted to talk today about what we know about the Joshua Usyk rematch. Joshua Usyk 2, which we looked like last week it wasn't going to happen, and now all of a sudden has just sort of re-emerged as a definite fight that's going to be taking place in the next 3 months. So, and to recap for anybody that's been on planet Mars, Joshua and Usyk fought in September of 2021 with Usyk, the underdog coming through, surprisingly winning a 12-round decision, nearly stopping Joshua and dominating him towards the end of the fight over 12 rounds to take all his titles. And then the rematch was immediately mooted. Joshua came out of the ring, all respect to him, and said, I want to rematch the guy. I reckon I can beat him next time. Usyk said, great, I'm up for a rematch. It was slated for May of this year, and then Russia invaded Ukraine. Usyk went back to the front line, joined up with a military unit, and was pictured in fatigues on the front line, and said he wasn't interested in boxing anymore. Things were more important defending his country. So, and, got a lot of plaudits deservedly for that. Last week, Eddie Hearn was saying, right, well, without this rematch being looking like it's going to happen, Joshua needs an interim fight. The names of Wilder and Ortiz were chucked around. All of a sudden, last week, there were some rumours swirling around. Then on Friday, it was confirmed that Usyk was going to be released from his frontline combat battalion, and he travelled to Poland and then flew from Poland to Las Vegas to prepare for the Joshua rematch. Because I think quite rightly, the Ukrainian authorities have seen that he would have greater value, speaking for Ukraine from the amazing position of being not only being heavyweight champion, but being engaged in a fight that the whole world wants to see and is watching. So he's over in Los Angeles at the moment training, where he is trained and prepared before, and Anthony Joshua is presumably in camp and training over here. Eddie Hearn has said that this rematch will now take place in June. He's just talking to some venues. He said he's had 5 different offers from the Middle East, as is kind of standard, and offers from America, but he wants to stage it at Wembley Stadium. And he said the latest it can be staged is Saturday, the 2nd of July. So they're looking at dates, about 3 or 4 dates, in that period before the 2nd of July, and also at 3 or 4 venues around the world. So, but we're hoping it's going to be Wembley, and it's going to be huge. And it's just really interesting, this, because of what's happened. The rematch was fascinating before. The idea of these two fighting again was really fascinating. Now, with the geopolitical consequences of what's happened since, I think it's going to be amazing. And it's going to be huge for boxing. So I want to have a little look at that as well. But let's look at, what we've got in terms of the rematch. I mean, we've got, obviously, as we know, Anthony Joshua, 24-2. He's 32 years old. Those 2 losses came against Usyk, as we said in the last fight in September 2021. And previously against Ruiz in 2019. In June 2019, he lost to Ruiz via TKO in the 7th round. And then he rematched in December and won a unanimous and wide points decision. So that's at least a bit of form for Joshua rematching. Usyk is 19-0, as we know previously, the undisputed cruiserweight champion, amazing amateur as well. They both won golds. Usyk in the heavyweight and Joshua in the super heavyweight division in the 2012 Olympics. So both incredibly accomplished. But Usyk's never had a rematch. That's interestingly, on his stats, he's never fought anybody again. As I say, Joshua has had that one rematch with Ruiz, but looking at the way he dealt with Joshua in that fight, it would seem that as a kind of very thinking fighter that Usyk is, rematches would suit him when he's really had a look at someone up close and sort of, worked out their style. So coming into the fight, Usyk is presumably going to do the same thing. We know he's going to have the same training team. Vasily Lomachenko's father is his trainer and always has been. And, so he will be taking him through this. So in a way, as Usyk said when this rematch was first mooted, I do everything the same. I just get to beat Anthony up again. Joshua is the one who needs to change tactics and needs to change form. Straight after the fight, he was saying he was going to change trainers. He went around, had this famous tour of training camps around the world. It's still not entirely clear what his training setup is going to be. And obviously, he's not going to tell us really what his tactics is going to be. The general thought is that he's got to be more physical. He's got to, be more concussive in his punch selection. He did hit Usyk in that fight, but he didn't really make a lot of impact. So instead of trying to box him, he's got to use those assets of his physicality, of his strength, and impose that more on Usyk in the rematch, which I think is easier said than done. Everybody says, okay, you just got to go in there and rough this guy up. I mean, this guy is a very accomplished boxer and has been used to people trying to rough him up for really his whole life. So, how Joshua goes about this is the real key and the real question in this rematch. One interesting thing I think is that Joshua was going to have home advantage initially before the war kicked off. Usyk said he'd like the rematch in Kiev, and Hearn said he thought that was unlikely because the money wasn't there. But it was still mooted as a possibility. Obviously, now it's well beyond the realms of possibility. And I think it probably will land in Wembley. The interesting thing is that would give Joshua home advantage, but would it? Because look at the amazing sympathy that the British people have had for the Ukrainians' plight. And they're quite rightly sending Usyk out to, as a representative, of their side and to put their side of the story. And so it's almost like I could see Wembley being a sea of Ukrainian flags. I mean, this is the thing about Joshua as well. The amazing competitor that he is, the lovely guy that he is and all that he's done. He hasn't really gelled in a way. I mean, there were all these comparisons to Bruno when he first started saying, his muscle band is one-dimensional and all that sort of thing, which I didn't agree with. I think he's much more athletic and more all-round, better accomplished all-round boxer than Bruno. But remember, Bruno's defeats made it more popular. And he was, went on to become one of the most popular sportsmen we've ever had. The same hasn't happened with Joshua. He just doesn't seem to have somehow, he was the golden boy, and then now he just doesn't seem to have that same popularity. And I could see a massively pro-Usyk crowd, because of this, Ukrainian stance, of the British public, come that rematch, which is going to be unusual for Joshua to be on his home territory and maybe almost cast as the bad guy, because Usyk will be seen as the one that's, has gone and fought for his country, has dropped everything, in a highly laudable move, say he's not interested in boxing, but has been sent back out to fight for the title. And once again, a heavyweight title will become this incredibly potent token as it has been in the past. I mean, if we're looking at times when geopolitics was swirling around the heavyweight title, we got to look back to 1971 and Ali v. Frazier. That was a big one. With the sort of anti-establishment figure in Ali against what was seen as the conformist figure in Frazier. And even if we go back to 1938 and we look at Max Schmeling against Joe Louis, which the whole world was fixated on that when Schmeling was seen to represent the Nazis. Everybody knew war was coming, and obviously Louis was representing America. We can talk about that being in a segregated America. That was kind of ironic, but he was seen as then the All-American boy, and obviously, Schmeling had previously defeated Louis, and Louis defeated Schmeling in one round. I think geopolitics are going to swirl around the heavyweight title again. The Klitschko brothers have said that they've given Usyk special messages to read out on the night, on this platform that he's going to have for Ukraine, because as Vitaly has said, I don't know if I'm going to exist in 3 months' time, so I've given him the messages now that he can read out, because they're under siege in Kiev. So it's amazingly charging this fight, and I think. As I keep saying, the geopolitics, but the politics that are going to surround it, the way the heavyweight championship is going to become this sort of crucible again, the meaning of the fight. We don't know, because we don't know what the situation in Ukraine is going to be like in 3 months. But, we can pretty certainly say it's going to be very highly charged. So an incredible time for boxing, an incredible rematch coming up. We look forward, hopefully, to this week to getting some more details, maybe getting confirmation of that venue and so on and so forth, and a bit more information from AJ. But it's going to be a fantastic fight. It's going to be an amazingly set up fight, and all the stuff that's going on around it, I think, is going to be fascinating as well. So looking forward to hearing more about that, in another great time for boxing.